Hi there, Chris from PC Gamer here. I'm going to talk you through my build for Diablo 3's Demon Hunter and how I'm approaching the game. I've tried to build a kind of arcane archer that specialises in heavy damage, big hits without relying on critical hits. The heart of the build is a bunch of passive bonuses to damage as well as high dexterity and damage bonus items. First up, passives. I take the damage percent bonus against slowed enemies from Call the Weak and add the bonus to damage from using bows with the archery passive. Then, initially I took steady aim, which increases damage when at least 10 yards away from enemies. Later on I changed this part of the build, but I'll get to that in a sec. The final big damage boost comes from Marked for Death with the rune Valley of Death. This makes every enemy in a designated area take 20% damage, extra damage. My main source of DPS is Elemental Arrow with the Frost Arrow rune. There's lots of reasons to go for this option. Elemental Arrow has a big damage bonus as it is, and Frost Arrow slows enemies, which means you can take more advantage of Call the Weak. It also splits on hit rather than passing through enemies, which makes it more versatile. You can hit enemies around corners by hitting one enemy and then it bounces off and hits its mates. Frost Arrow uses a lot of hatred, so I mix it up with Entangling Shot with heavy burden. This keeps enemies slowed and in my Marked for Death area. Later I changed the rune to Justice is Served, which doubles the hatred regeneration, but it's kind of an and-or between the two. The amount of damage this build dishes out makes it a good match for Shadow Power with Blood Moon, which returns 30% of damage dealt as health. Against big groups of enemies, I can heal myself for almost as much as I'm being hit, and keep my health bar maxed out. If enemies get really close, I use Smoke Screen to get out of the way. This gives you a lot of control, and it's also good for putting distance between you and the enemy. With the Breathe Deep rune, you also regenerate a bit of hatred while doing this. Finally, Rain of Vengeance rounds out the build. This is a big chunk of AoE damage that costs nothing to fire, so it frees up hatred to use a Frost Arrow. The Dark Cloud rune makes it follow enemies around, allowing you to focus on setting up shots. When you unlock it though, change Steady Aim for Sharpshooter. This gives you a crit bonus that builds and builds until you land one. Later on, it's pretty difficult to get 10 yards of clear space, so this kind of gives you that same initial damage boost. On higher difficulties, when enemies can get close quickly or stack damage against you, it's necessary to make some changes. I swap out Marked for Death for Preparation with Battle Stars, which restores all your discipline and heals for 60%. This allows you to use Smoke Screen much more often, and you keep Shadow Power for healing against groups of weaker enemies. And against really tough single enemies, I change Frost Arrow for Lightning Bolts, which stun on crit, meaning you can sort of manage the amount of damage you're taking from big bosses. So thanks for watching, please rate and subscribe, and let us know how you're playing Demon Hunter in the comments below.
Not enough hatred.